Good morning, my lovelies. I promised to tell you about the hidden true crimes saga. Okay, this is the saga that made Lauren Mathias go on a live crying for 9 hours. I don't know who was filming her, but whoever let her cry and complain and sob and whatever for 9 hours, they need their heads read. So I'll give you the cliff notes because it's quite convoluted, but I will give you the cliff notes. There's a lady called Christina, okay? She is a TikToker. She got a TikTok account relating to arts and crafts and that kind of thing, photography, I believe. She created a new TikTok account to talk about friends that let you down and how you shouldn't just let people walk all over you, that kind of thing. And she created, over the course of 6 months, 70 videos, 70, and talking about these kinds of things. Apparently, these were aimed at Lauren Mathias, okay, of Hidden True Crime. Now, Lauren knew they were aimed at her, but nobody else knew that they were aimed at Lauren. So it was just her. And some of the TikToks are so innocuous. I have watched them. And they say things like, oh, don't, if somebody backstabs you, don't let them get away with it, or don't stay in a friendship where people are mean. They really are sweet and innocuous. And Christina, we assume, created this TikTok page just to vent her feelings. This is the reporting on this from Lauren supporters, Hidden True Crime supporters, is that Christina was stalking Lauren, okay, and that Christina she was relentless. Okay, if you know how many TikTok videos are created every day, most TikTok users will make, I don't know, 5, 10, 20 videos a day. So 70 in 6 months, that's like 10 a month. That's less, yeah, it's 10 a month. So what is that, 4 weeks? Like 2 a week? That's not relentless at all in TikTok terms, not at all, not relentless. They didn't mention Lauren. And then some reporting says that there were hashtags that mentioned Lauren Mathias and Hidden True Crime, so it was deliberately aimed at ruining Lauren's reputation. I think Lauren was worried about what else this lady Christina was going to say about her, because there was no hashtags. And I've gone back and I've viewed videos of the TikToks at the time when all of this blew up, just in case the hashtags got removed later. But there were no hashtags. Okay, there was a complete fabrication. And even if Lauren had been identified and this person said, I found her to be a bad friend, she did things that, I trusted her and then she broke my trust. Even so, we're allowed to say things about other people, okay? That's not stalking, and that's not harassment, and that's not, what do they call it? Defamation. Okay, now, just putting my legal hat on, defamation is basically when you say things to lower somebody in the esteem of others, and it has or can have an effect of ruining their reputation or impacting their business. Now, there's two kinds of standards with defamation. If a person is a public figure, then the person who's defaming that public figure has to have a much higher, you have to prove a much higher rate of intention to inflict this harm. Whereas if they're a private figure, you can just be negligent. You can just go, oh, I didn't intend to harm their reputation, but it actually did or would be likely to. So that's kind of the two levels. Now, Lauren was saying, oh, well, she's not really a public figure, even though she boasts of millions of views on YouTube. And she's a sort of limited public figure just for this limited. Anyway, I don't think any court in the world would agree with that. She's inserted herself into very high profile court cases. She's on the news media. She brags about what a fantastic journalist she is, how she had this great broadcast journalist career before she came to YouTube. So she's put herself out there. So, but even on the lower standard, even if she is a private figure, I watched those videos from Christina and nothing in there, to my mind, came close to defamation. Now, there is the Spermgate video, which is kind of separate. It's a different kind of video, but all of the others were pretty innocuous. So the Spermgate video, this is where Christina talks about her friend, who's still unnamed, who was thinking of harvesting sperm from her dying brother and either impregnating a surrogate or maybe carrying a baby herself, obviously acting as a surrogate, not saying that she wanted to, have a baby with her brother, but that she would carry it as a surrogate to carry on her brother's line, basically. And then Christina had just said that raises issues of consent because the brother was in a coma. Anyway, it was a short video, it didn't explain very well, but it just kind of hinted at this. And then somebody in the comments said, oh, that sounds like the R word, intercourse without consent. And Christina just said, could be. That was as innocuous as it got. And Lauren was angry because apparently this was a private conversation she had with Christina, and now Christina was calling her a S-assaulter and an R-worder, and which is not at all what the video said. Not at all. Not even by any stretch of the imagination. Okay, and even if Christina had identified Lauren, there is no right to privacy in your messages or your conversations with people. If you have a conversation with me, I can go and tell anybody I want. There's no right to privacy in a private conversation. So there's that for what it's worth. Okay, even if Christina had said terrible things about Lauren and had cast aspersions, which I watched the video, she didn't. But if she had done, so giving Lauren the benefit of the doubt, even if she had, that is still not cause for what came next. And what came next was Lauren reporting Christina to the police on at least one occasion. The one occasion that I saw was absolutely wild. It was the body cam footage got released a little bit later. So we're going back now. This is now sometime after this whole drama has started between the two. Lauren is saying that Christina is stalking her. She's not stalking her. She's not going near her. She's just putting these uncomfortable videos onto YouTube. And there's a bit of a exchange of emails behind the scene. And then Lauren will say some really terrible things to Christina and then block her. So that was I think that was a DM. And so then Christina emailed her. So Lauren had said, don't contact me again, and then blocked her. And then Christina emailed her and said, look, we're in the middle of a conversation here. You can't just say these things to me and then block me. I want to finish the conversation. So maybe Christina could have maybe not done that, but still not stalking. And there's not like thousands of messages or anything like that. So anyway, we get to this one situation where Lauren calls the police. And this is a situation where I think it was Brian Koberger's sentencing hearing. And some people were in the courthouse. Lauren comes into the courthouse and says to the one lady, oh, can I sit next to you? And this lady is a friend of Christina, Lindsay. And Lindsay said, no, go away. And Lauren had sent a cease and desist letter to Lindsay, saying to Lindsay, like kind of preempting and saying to Lindsay, don't release our private conversations and don't tell people I've spoken to you. And I heard the cease and desist letter. It was very heavy-handed. So Lindsay said, no, go away. Don't sit next to me. Oh, no, in fact, Lindsay didn't even talk to her. The friends with Lindsay said, go away. You've sent her a cease and desist letter. Go and sit somewhere else. Now, Lauren claims there was no seats anywhere else in the courthouse. However, multiple people have reported that there were seats elsewhere. Lauren could have gone and sat anywhere else. To me, it sounds like she wanted to sit near Lindsay to get information about Christina. Anyway, nothing to do with Christina. Christina's not even there. Both of these groups of people, after the hearing, they go out to dinner. Lauren starts filming some people who were this group, this Lindsay group, and their friends, because they're at a restaurant across the road. And now she calls the police and she says, these people are stalking me. Later, she uses this as evidence of Christina stalking her. She puts this into evidence in a stalking case against Christina. Christina wasn't even there. Christina wasn't even in the country. And yet this complaint, this video that she takes, crying because friends of Christina's are in a cafe across the road, this makes its way into Lauren's complaint against Christina, making it sound like Christina was following her all over the place. Christina wasn't even in the country. Okay, so Lauren is starting to look like a nut job. Okay, I'm sorry to say, this is my opinion. This evidence doesn't look good. So Lauren sends she files for a restraining order, basically a stalking protection order, restraining order against Christina. Christina hasn't really done much, okay? She posted a few videos on TikTok that made Lauren feel uncomfortable. She didn't name Lauren. One of the videos, she did put a photograph and then it had a clown face on one of the people, and Lauren said, oh, this is a well-known photograph of me. Now, remember, when all of this started, Christina had maybe 300 views on her videos, up to 300. So she didn't have very many on these videos. But talk about the Streisand effect. Well, tens of thousands of people have seen them now, if not hundreds of thousands. Not really the videos, but Lauren's reaction to the videos being completely batshit crazy in my view. That's my inexpert opinion on mental health. Anyway, so where will we? Lauren files a stalking injunction. In the meantime, Christina is on her way to CrimeCon, which is a great big convention. I think it costs something like $1,800. Christina has been planning this trip for more than a year, okay? She's been telling everybody that would listen that she's going to this thing. She gets on the plane and she goes to CrimeCon. She arrives there and she's, I don't know, checking in or something, and the police come and they serve her with this stalking injunction. So basically, Lauren has gone to the court, told her side of the story, and the courts will always grant the injunction out of an abundance of caution. Okay, now some people who've reported this said, oh, the courts reviewed all the facts and they agreed that stalking had taken place. No, they didn't review all the facts. They had Lauren's complaint and Lauren's coloring of the facts. They did not hear from Christina at this stage. So it's quite normal, quite common, quite usual for an injunction to be granted in that situation. And I'll just go back into some of my experience with injunctions. My brother, when I created my own law firm after being practicing for quite a while, my first case that I ever took on was in relation to my brother, and him and his wife had split up, and she was really crazy. One day she stood over him with an axe while he was asleep. He woke up and he saw her just swinging the axe towards his head. That's how crazy she was. Anyway, when they split up, her lawyer went to the court for an ex parte injunction. Now, ex parte means the other party doesn't get a chance to get heard. Okay, and she was granted an injunction against my brother, even though she was the violent one. And when we went to court to sort that out, because his job involved security, so he needed to be able to have access to weapons. The injunction said that he couldn't have access to weapons. I tried to reason with the lawyer on the other side. I said, look, my client, who she didn't know was my brother, my client is not going to come near your client. He doesn't want to have anything to do with her. But can she also agree not to come near him, because he actually is scared of her? And we don't have to get into the details of who's done what, but let's just have this mutual agreement that each will stay away from each other, and he can have weapons in his job, and he locks them away at his job, and he doesn't take them home. So that will give her some kind of extra comfort. And the lawyer said no. So we ended up before the judge, and the judge was like, well, what's happening? So the lawyer on the other side gets all hysterical, explains her client's hysterical accounts of my brother stalking her, which was complete nonsense. And then I started to speak, and I said, the facts, although the facts do matter, the fact is that my client, the man, doesn't want to have anything to do with this woman, and he's happy to agree to that order to stay away from her, but he would like it reciprocal because he doesn't want her coming near him. And he says she's been stalking him, sitting outside his work, going to his place of work, interfering basically with his life. And in that case, the judge was furious with the lawyer on the other side, and she said to the lawyer of the wife, if your client is so scared of this man, why will she not agree not to go near him? So the injunction got lifted off my brother, and put on to his crazy wife. But he didn't want to go near her anyway because, she had stalked him. And although he was more than capable of taking care of himself, he didn't want anything to get physical or violent. So he wanted to stay away from her. So getting back to Lauren, when the initial stalking injunction was granted, it was basically an order for Christina to stay away from Lauren and not to defame her or to stalk her, which she wasn't doing. Okay, she wasn't defaming her and she wasn't stalking her. She wasn't going to Lauren's house. She wasn't. Oh, and apparently Lauren said that Christina had followed her to various court events. I don't know about that because no evidence was ever given other than this group of friends of Christina's that went to the same court hearing as Christina went to. But that's a public place, and Christina's a photographer. She's allowed to go and take photographs at these events. And so, anyway, this stalking injunction was served at Christina at CrimeCon when she landed, when she got there. So she was not allowed to go into CrimeCon. This thing that she spent $1,800 on, arranged cross-country flights for, arranged for childcare for her kids, this whole thing that had been planned for a whole year, she wasn't allowed to go in because of this ex parte injunction granted without her side being heard. So she didn't go. She didn't go into CrimeCon, but there were some bars and restaurants around the area, and she asked the policeman, can I attend these restaurants and these bars? And he said, that's fine, but if you go in and you see Lauren is in there, then just leave. So this is now becomes the next big fact in this situation is Christina was in the pub and Lauren came in, and then Lauren was angry because Christina didn't leave immediately. And Lauren was saying that Christina broke the injunction by being within 50 yards of her. This point was raised later before the judge, and the judge said, basically, that's ridiculous. Okay, absolutely ridiculous. If you have a stalking injunction against somebody else and you choose to go into a place where they are, they can finish their meal and then leave. But that's your choice to go in there. That's not them breaking the injunction. The judge also clarified later on that Christina is more than allowed to say things that are negative against Lauren. She's not barred from putting forward her opinion. She can keep making those TikToks, provided they don't rise to the level of defamation, which is a pretty high bar. And he clarified, he said, look, my intention was never to stifle her free speech. My intention was never to say she can't post anything on social media. That's ridiculous. Of course she can. And she can post things about Lauren on social media. And she can post negative things about Lauren on social media, provided it doesn't amount to stalking and it doesn't amount to, defamation. Okay. Now, there is part of the law around stalking that says somebody's not allowed to do acts that will put you in fear for your life, or in fear generally, something like that. But it's a reasonable person test. So Lauren, her evidence, so the case went back to the judge, and they were supposed to hear both sides' evidence, but for some reason it wasn't quite ready at that stage. So then it got kicked to the next date. That was this sort of the interim hearing where the judge made this clarification. Now, for some reason, Lauren put in this evidence about how scared she was and how this made her feel and how it affected her mental health, and her producer, who was only 24 years old, was scared for her life, and her son was scared and his mental health was suffering. And I don't know how old the son is, but he's pretty young. So the fact that a young kid knew that the mother was scared and the young kid was scared, I mean, presumably the kid's not on social media, I don't know. There had been no threats against him or his mother or his family. If the kid is scared, then that's on the parents, not on anybody else. And Christina had never ever threatened Lauren, ever. No, there was no threat of violence, there was no indication of violence. She didn't want to harm her, but she was just telling the story. She'd been wronged by a friend and she was telling the story. So anyway, Lauren comes up with how scared she is, and subsequently she does this whole 9-hour live where she's crying and saying how scared she is and she's worried for her life. And then after that, her husband goes on with her onto another 4-hour live, and he says people commit violence because they think they're in the moral right, that they're morally right, and they will never stop until you're dead. I mean, how? I have no words. I have no words. He is supposed to be a trained psychologist. He's putting the shit in her head. She's already said in 9 hours that she's mentally unstable and that she's fearful. And now he, the great authority, who she never thinks can do anything wrong, and he's the doctor, and he's telling her, he's even got a book, he's showing her in a book, they will not stop until you are dead. Okay, I don't know what the context of that book is, but it sounds like bullshit to me. People commit violence and stalk people because they feel they're morally right. No, people stalk people because they're sick in the head. They think they've got a parasocial relationship with someone. They think they're in love with a celebrity. I don't know. Brian Koberger allegedly stalked those 4 students that he killed. Did he think he was morally right, slaughtering them in their beds? I don't think so. So whatever that book was, that might have been a very narrow interpretation. But anyway, it doesn't apply here. Christine has never said she's going to harm Lauren. She's never done that. I can't believe how irresponsible John is. He should be getting Lauren mental health help, proper mental health help, not playing it up, not making her more concerned. Anyway, from what I've seen, it looks like Lauren's mental health deterioration is because John is filling her head with this shit, which is absolute rubbish. The fact that you think that somebody who makes a few mean TikToks is going to come and kill you, that's a complete disconnect from reality. Okay, complete disconnect. So anyway, we're back. We're in the interim court case, and somehow Law and Crime, the big TV network, YouTube channel, finds out that this case is happening, and they ask for permission to be able to screen, or to show the thing live, broadcast it. And Lauren says, no, you can't broadcast it because I'm going to be revealing confidential medical records of my young son, and I don't want that getting out there. And the judge says, bullshit. Our justice system in America is open, and this can be live streamed. So after that interim hearing, Lauren withdraws her injunctions against Christina, and she says it's because she didn't want her child's medical information getting into the public arena. I think, and this is my legal assessment, having watched that hearing and heard everything her lawyer said and everything the other lawyer said and read the papers in that case, in the injunction case, I think Lauren never expected Christina to push back. She never expected Christina to defend the injunction. I think that Lauren, from the comments of the judge, fully understood that the judge had not seen anything in those papers that was going to be that serious a level. Basically, the judge gave very clear indications in that interim hearing that unless Lauren had more evidence, the injunction was not going to be upheld when he heard Christina's evidence. And now some of Lauren's supporters have said the reason the judge upheld the order, the injunction at that second hearing, was because he assessed danger to Lauren. No, he did not assess anything. He did not uphold anything. He just let the order stay in place, which is perfect, normal. That's the way these things go, until the third hearing, where he would have heard from both sides, and then he would have made his decision. But Lauren chickened out. She didn't want Christina's evidence to be heard because, in my view, legal opinion, after 30 years of experience in the law, assessing the facts that were presented in that hearing, and that were going to be presented, Lauren's evidence fell far short. And I think the judge was going to have some hard words for Lauren. And so Lauren withdrew. And this excuse about, she didn't want her son's medical information to be made public. I'm a mother. I understand that, okay? You want to protect your children, keep the information private, but the judge would never, ever, ever have made it a requirement that the medical information be made public. All she had to do was say, right, Your Honor, we're going to go ahead, but please can you ring fence the medical information, my mental health medical information and my son's mental health information. That is not to be made public. And the judge would have granted that. Even Lori Vallow Daybell, the multiple murderer crazy lady, when she was ill, or she claimed to be ill, going to court, and the judge made the doctors in the prison review her health, even she was entitled to medical privacy. The court, the physicians did not have to say what was wrong, and in fact the judge didn't want to know. Am I thinking of the right person? Was it her, or was it that other nut job lady? Sarah Boone. It might have been Sarah Boone, the one that zipped her boyfriend into the suitcase and laughed while he died. Yeah, that was on video. One of them. Okay. Even criminal defendants who are not cooperating with the court and who the court believes are malingering, they're entitled to their medical privacy from the court. Even the court doesn't know what's wrong with them. So this nonsense about, oh, her son's medical records would be spread all over the internet by Law and Crime. Well, firstly, Law and Crime is a very well-respected journalist outfit. They will not put things out into the public domain willy-nilly. And in fact, there's another claim against Lauren, which I've seen in several places, where private attorney-client conversations, a jailhouse conversation, came into Lauren's possession, and she publicized that on her YouTube channel instead of letting the jail know that the conversation had been released by accident. So there's evidence out there, you can get that video, of her behaving unethically. But she puts that on to Law and Crime and assumes Law and Crime is going to behave unethically. Anyway, so this nonsense, it's absolute nonsense. The judge would have protected her son's medical information. They would have protected her medical information. And frankly, I mentioned a little bit before, there's this concept of the reasonable person. So would a reasonable person have feared for their life? Not would Lauren Mathias, who's on edge because her psychologist husband is reading her bullshit from quotes from books out of context, absolutely causing her to go to the brink, which we can see on video. I would hate to know what goes on behind closed doors with those two. They put it on video. Anyway, the question would not be whether she subjectively felt afraid. The question is, would a reasonable person be afraid? So her medical records, yeah, that'd be a little bit relevant, but that's not the test. The test is, would a reasonable person be afraid in those circumstances? And even without seeing Christina's actual evidence, just seeing what's out there in the public domain, I do not think any reasonable person would be afraid for their life or think they were being stalked or, yeah. And so then we come back to the Barbara Streisand effect. If Lauren hadn't gone ahead and filed an injunction against Christina, there wouldn't have been more content made about it. Other content creators wouldn't have leapt to Christina's defense. And then Lauren still pushed it to the courts. And then when she withdrew the whole thing so that Christina again couldn't get her chance to put her side forward, this is exactly what she did when they exchanged DMs. She said mean things and then she blocked her. So doing the same pattern of behavior, she withdrew the court case so Christina again couldn't put her side forward. But that doesn't matter by now, because everybody can see, well, everybody with a half a brain cell can see that Lauren is using not only the courts to limit Christina's freedom of speech and freedom of movement, but she also called the police more than once against Christina. And there is a theory that Lauren wanted Christina to go to jail. Now, I don't know if that's true or not, but anyway, the whole point of this is that if you misuse the courts, or you try to use the courts as your own personal bodyguards or protectors, it will come back to bite you at some stage. And Lauren didn't allow that court case to go ahead, because I'm pretty sure It was her brother who was representing her. Her brother's a lawyer, and I'm pretty sure her brother said to her, listen, this is going to make us all look ridiculous. It's time to pull the plug on this. Anyway, that's what I would have said. If she was my sister, right at the start, I would have said to her, no. You're going down a bad path, and the only person who's going to come out of this looking bad is you. So she tried to make Christina look bad. And that is YouTubers using lawfare, using the courts against other people. And we've had other examples of this in the Blake versus Justin Baldoni case, where she sent subpoenas to hundreds of small content creators, demanding that they give up their sources. It's just rich, powerful people misusing the law to try and silence people and to get their way. So basically, the reason why Blake Lively sent those subpoenas out to the small creators was as a threat to say, if you keep talking about me, I'm going to involve you in this expensive litigation. And most of those subpoenas got quashed. The courts eventually said, no, you can't do this. I believe that's what happened. Anyway, Lauren Mathias is her own worst enemy, and Dr. John is not helping, okay? I don't know if he's crossed ethical boundaries in his profession, but putting somebody on video for 4 hours who you yourself think is mentally disturbed, and then reading from a book to say people will not stop stalking until you're killed. It's just, and does he know the legal definition of stalking? Because it doesn't seem like he does. All right, my friends, it's a crazy world out there. You keep safe and look after yourself. Until the next time.